Now, we are in the middle of a series called The Jesus I Know. It's one of my favorite sermon series I've preached in a long time because it's a personal sermon series. If you're new here, the idea is that any person up here on the stage begins to share with you about the Jesus that they know. And this idea came in, it would be great if I could take all of you to coffee and tell you about Jesus, but man, that'd take a lot of time and a lot of money, so it's just way easier to stand up here and go, listen, let me tell you about the Jesus that I know. And so it's a very personal sermon series. And it's the idea that if we were sitting down over coffee, it's the Jesus that I, meaning Chris, knows that I would want to tell you about. And so imagine today that we're sitting down over coffee. We sit down, the coffee comes, and I go, let me tell you about the Jesus that I know. And here's what I would tell you about the Jesus that I know with our time today. And it's simply this, is that the Jesus that I know can use a little to help a lot. The Jesus that I know, meaning Chris, can use a little to help a lot. And this is one of the most fun, energizing conversations that I get to have with people. Like to sit down with them, and it's usually people new to the church or maybe a really bad church upbringing that are giving church a second chance. And to sit down with them, and to hear their story and go, hey, listen, the thing that you have, your skill, talent, ability, your creativeness, the way you play a musical instrument, your business acumen, your leadership, that can be used in a really big way for Jesus. And it's a fun conversation to have because the hope is that at some point in the conversation, there's this aha moment. And when that happens, you see that person, they realize that their talent or ability given to Jesus can be multiplied greater than they could ever imagine. And so then fast forward either weeks or months or sometimes even years to come back to him and go, man, you're right. I did this, and man, Jesus showed up and did something incredible with this little simple act of obedience, this little talent that I had. Jesus multiplied in a really unbelievable way. And so it's a really fun conversation to be able to have with people and to see on a firsthand basis. And I saw this happen years ago with about 10 to 12 guys. Before I was a preacher, I was in the construction industry, built houses and things like that. And so I was in construction, was going to church, was in a small group, but was in the construction world. I became buddies with the guy who ran a nonprofit. And his nonprofit, he would go to border towns in Mexico that bordered Texas, and he would build homes for people that couldn't afford them or that needed a home. Now, these weren't fancy homes by any means. They were just usually little 2 bedrooms, no plumbing. They had community toilets, but it was better than the cardboard box that they were living in. And so he would go to these border towns, find these families, and build these homes. And so he came to me one time. He goes, hey, I know you're construction. What do you think about building a home? He goes, getting some construction guys and help them build a home. I was like, that'd be fantastic. And he goes, we'll get the slab poured and maybe the weekend you guys come, maybe you guys can frame it. And then I'll have another crew come side it and another crew put in the windows and the roof. And it takes about, 4 full weekends, but it's this nice home for people. And I go, no, we're not going to do that. He goes, what do you mean? I said, we're going to build the whole thing in a weekend. Because if a little is good, a lot's got to be awesome. So he's like, what? I go, yeah, we'll just do the whole thing in a weekend. This was way before the days of Chip and Joanna, so there was no shiplap on this house, all right? And we'll just cut all that out. He goes, you're going to build it? I was like, yeah, we got this. He's like, okay. So I began to recruit about 10 or 12 of buddies of mine that were in the construction industry, and we went down there. Now, the best way to describe these guys, they were not exactly choir boys. You know the type of crew I recruited? Okay. They had a good time wherever they went, all right? This down the front row gets it, all right? The rest of you are like, can we laugh at that? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, all right? So they're construction guys, but man, they were so good at what they did, and they worked so hard. And I go, hey, we're going to build this home. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to do the whole thing in a weekend. And of course, well, yeah, we'll do it. So we go down there, and we work from sun up to sundown the first day, about 12 hours. The next day, another 8 to 10 hours. And we built the whole thing in a little over a day and a half. And driving back over to Texas, it was so cool, because this was the first time, these guys weren't thinking mission trip. Right, these guys don't wait. I mean, they're construction guys, and they're not thinking, oh, how can I use my gifts for Jesus? It was just like, well, I can do this really easily. And it was the first time for them that they had seen that their skills and abilities could be used in a much bigger way than them, in a much bigger way than their bank account. And driving back, you could just see the look in their faces to go, wow, what we have, what we consider easy, man, ministered to this family in a huge, huge way, not only this family, but this community. And so I love having these conversations with telling people, listen, the little thing that you have that you don't think is much, given in the hands of Jesus, can help so many people way more than you could ever imagine. And we all want to help people. Like if you're here and you're not a church person, like you're not a Christian at all, but you're just here checking it out, I could ask any of you after service and go, do you want to help people? You don't have to be a church person or not. Your answer, and I don't know you all, but you all seem like very nice people, is yes. Right? It's not no. You're like, no, I'm the biggest jerk you've ever met, Chris. I don't want to help anybody. Of course you want to help people. I mean, you just, I want to help people. But you're also very smart. And so you go, well, I want to help as many people as I want to maximize whatever I'm doing for the most good. And so you're going to see the little thing that you have, talent, skill, ability, thing that comes easy to you, given to Jesus, used for Jesus, can be multiplied greater than you can imagine. If you got a Bible, go to John chapter 6. John chapter 6. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be up on the screens. And it is a famous story that if you've grown up in Sunday school, church, you certainly heard before. But I think you're going to see it in a little bit different light today. John chapter 6, pick up in verse 1. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him, and it was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Now, this massive amount of people you're going to see in just a minute, it was 5,000 men, not including spouse and kids. So conservatively speaking, it was between 10 to 15,000 people are like coming to Jesus. And Jesus is there hanging out, this massive amount of people. I mean, just throngs of people are coming to see Jesus. And Jesus goes, hey, can we get some like $5 hot and readies to feed everybody? Can we like go through like the local Kroger? Can we do something to feed these people? And Jesus already knew the answer to it, and he was asking Philip. Jesus knew what was going to happen, but the disciples, well, they answer him. Look what happens in verse 7. Philip replied, even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them. Like, hey, Jesus, I don't know if you calculate like minimum wage times all these people and food. Like, the math doesn't add up, Jesus. And I'm sure Jesus is going, I know. Then look what happens. Verse 8, then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd? Tell everyone to sit down, Jesus said. So they all sat down on the grassy slopes, and the men alone numbered about 5,000. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks to God, and distributed them to the people. And afterward, he did the same with the fish. And they all ate as much as they wanted. And after everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the 5 barley loaves. And again, if you've grown up in church before, you know this story. And it's a familiar story of this little boy with a lunch that more than likely his mom packed. He's there, and then Jesus takes that and feeds probably 10 to 15,000 people. The Jesus that I know personally can use a little to help a lot. And a few things I want you to notice about this story. I want you to go back to verse 9. Verse 9. When Andrew brings the boy, he says, there's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. He goes, but what good is that with this huge crowd? What good is that with this huge crowd? Only Jesus knew how good the lunch could be. Only Jesus knew how good. Not even the boy knew. Like, it wasn't like the boy came and goes, hey, Jesus, maybe you can use this and feed everybody. No, he didn't say that. Andrew didn't say, oh, hey, Jesus, we got a lunch here. Maybe you can do your thing and feed everybody. It was just like, we got a lunch, but obviously, what good is that? Only Jesus knew really how good the lunch could be. And the same with your talent and my talent. Your ability, that thing, how God has wired you, I don't really know how good it can be. You don't really know how good it can be until you give it over to Jesus. But what I do know is that your skill, talent, or ability will do way more good in the hands of Jesus than it will in your own. Way more good in the hands of Jesus than it will in your own. However, you're free to do what you want to. You're free to keep it for yourself. Like the little kid could have been like, man, suckers, I got my own lunch and ate it all. He could have been like, man, all these people are starving. I'm glad mom took care of me and begin it. He could have done that. Could have kept the lunch for himself, but would have missed out on the miracle. You can keep your skill, talent, or ability, however it is God's word, for yourself and only for yourself to benefit yourself. You can do that. But you're going to miss out on really how good it can be, and it'll be way more good, do way more good in the hands of Jesus than it will in your own. But all too often, we look at what we have, how God has wired us, and go, but what good is that? And I grew up in church and Sunday school like many of you did, and so I've heard this, I don't know how many times. And here's what I've always thought up until this week. Now, some of you may be like brilliant Bible scholars, and you already knew this, but just kind of go with me on this, all right? So up until this week, I always thought it's a really weird thing for a mom to put 5 loaves of bread and 2 largemouth bass in this kid's lunch. Is that not weird? 5 loaves of bread. My kids eat a lot, but we don't pack them 5 loaves every day. But here's what you need to understand. When he talks about the loaves and the fishes, the barley loaves were barley cakes. And this little loaves and fishes, it would have been the food commonly eaten by the poor. So barley was cheap and this little fish was cheap. So it was 5 little barley cakes. So sack lunch, and every good sack lunch has to have a name on the front like that. So I'm sure it had a little boy on there, whatever his name was. And so pull out, 5 little barley loaves like this. So right, just imagine a little barley cake like this. And of course, it was gluten-free, right? We all know that. So the 5 little barley cakes like this. Now the fish, I just envision what kind of mom puts sushi in a 12, that's just crazy to me. But what you need to understand is this little fish would be salted, boiled, cooked fish, a relish that would go on the bread. That was what it was used for. So the best thing that I can think of to describe it, a little chunky tuna right there, okay? All right, so this is what the kid had, right? Essentially a tuna fish sandwich. And the disciples looked at it, even the boy looked at it and goes, what good is this? They saw a little Lunchable that mom had packed. Jesus saw it and saw the miracle that was about to unfold for nearly 15,000 people. I think all too often we look at our lives and go, what good is this? It's rather small. Yeah, it is. It's not much. No, it's not in your hands. It doesn't do much good in your hands. It'll feed you. But given over to Jesus can have way more impact on people than you can ever imagine. And your little tuna fish sandwich will do way more good in the hands of Jesus than it will in your own. But for whatever reason, we're the little boy and going, well, you guys got to fend for yourself. Mom packed me a lunch. I'm going to use my skill, talent, ability to benefit and help only me. And Jesus is showing in the story the little boy and his willingness to go, you know what, it ain't much. Mom packed it, but Jesus, you take it and you do what you can do with it. Only Jesus knew really how good the lunch could be. And I don't know how great your skill and talent and ability is, and you fully don't understand it either. But when you give it over to Jesus, you stand back and go, wow. So after he gives it to Jesus, I want you to go down to verse 11. After verse 11. And this is fascinating to me. It says that Jesus took the loaves and gave thanks to God and distributed them to the people, and afterwards he did the same with the fish. Look at the very last sentence. Very last sentence. They all ate as much as they wanted. They all ate as much as they wanted. Meaning it wasn't rationed out. Now you think about this. Here's this, 15,000 people. Hey, listen, just take a little bit until everybody gets some, and then we can have some leftovers. But Jesus goes, no, you take and eat as much as you want to. The little boy's lunch was turned into an all-you-can-eat buffet in the hands of Jesus. It wasn't portioned out. It wasn't rationed out and Jesus going, hey, listen, I got this lunch, just take a little bit of fish, a little bit of bread. It's going, no, you eat as much as you want to. Meaning when Jesus takes it, his what he does with what you have will blow your mind. Whereas it wasn't like, hey, we kind of need what's going. No, you take and eat as much as you want to. That all-you-can-eat buffet, you can imagine like this little boy looking around and cannot believe. I mean, can you imagine what that little boy went home and told his buddies that night? How was your day? Oh, and saw Jesus. What'd you do? You're not going to believe it. Like my mom packed enough lunch to feed 15,000 people. Like that moment. And so when you begin to serve Jesus, it's not just this, oh gosh, I hope it works out. It's your mind-blowing, jaw-dropping, eye-popping, inspirational fun. I mean, that's what it means to serve. That moment we go, I can't believe I'm seeing what I'm seeing. This is what the miracle is. Do you remember the very first time as a kid, your parents took you to an all-you-can-eat buffet? Do you remember like your mind exploded as a little kid? Like you walked into like a Golden Corral, and they're like, you can eat whatever you want. You're like, what do you mean this? We just take whatever. What about that ice cream machine over there? What's the deal on that? You just take as much as you want to. Well, I'm sure there's a rule. No, son or daughter, you take as much as you want to. Your mind's just blown. And then, I remember that, and then I grew up and got sophisticated. And someone introduced Brianna years ago to one of these Brazilian steakhouses. Oh, meat eaters over in this section, okay. I can remember the very first time I was there, they sit down, there's no menu. Like in front here, they just had this card, and it was red or green. It was red. I was like, I flipped it over, and like literally a guy magically appeared out of thin air and just started slicing meat. Well, I looked at him, I turned it to red, and he magically disappeared. I turned it back, and I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, like that. Just what happened? I mean, this is the miracle. I mean, this isn't like hey, gosh, I hope we make it. When you begin to serve Jesus, use what you have, although it doesn't seem very good to you or to me or anybody else, when it's given to Jesus, there is this mind-blowing, jaw-dropping, eye-popping, inspirational fun. And I think for all too often when we go, if I got to serve Jesus, I'll do it begrudgingly and I just, show up. When you begin to serve Jesus and you get to see things you can't believe you're seeing, and you're inspired in ways that you never, and you begin to have more fun than you can ever imagine because you're taking your small skill, talent, or ability and seeing it multiplied into an all-you-can-eat buffet. You're seeing things happen. You're seeing people change, and your mind's blown. You're going, I'm having the time of my life seeing this happen. Using your gifts, talents, abilities, serving in Jesus' name should be fun, should be inspirational, should make your jaw drop. Years ago, before I became a preacher, again, I was in construction. We were going to church. I told Brianna, I said, hey, I want to begin to volunteer and serve. She goes, great. She goes, what do you want to do? I go, I want to run one of those cameras. And she goes, you don't have like a creative bone in your body. I was like, I know, but they look fun. And so I put my little name on the car and turned it in, and I got an email, and I got trained on, and I started running cameras, and it was a blast. And I remember this one weekend, that what you may not know about these cameras is that they're wearing headsets, right, with little microphones. So these headsets, they're connected to each other, and up there in the little fishbowl, there's a director up there. So he's calling the shots, camera 1, camera 2, the slides, all that kind of stuff. And so I was serving at this church, and we had these similar cameras and that kind of stuff, and I was in the back. And there was this director who was on staff of the church. His name was Steve, literally one of the funniest guys I have ever met in my life. And he's back there. And so he's calling shots, camera 1, camera 2, and I'm back there, we're watching everything. And we had a guest preacher that weekend. Don't remember who it was, but here's what I remember what happened. We had a guest preacher, and his thing as a guest preacher is when he made points, he talked like this. You need to do this, and you need to stop doing that, and you need to do this. And this is how he preached. So Steve thought it would be funny is every time he did that, he would make gun sounds. And then so he's just calling back there, and this guy, nobody can hear. He's just making gun noise like this, and this. And the goal was to get camera 1, which is dead center camera, to laugh so hard that it begins to shake on the iMac. And that started happening. He goes, got him, like that. I goes, now our camera crew is way more professional than that. They don't do that. But it's that moment where you go, man, this is fun. I mean, it should be this inspiration going, I get to see Jesus do some unbelievable things with the small little tuna fish sandwich that I think that I have. Jesus looks at it and goes, no. I see a way bigger miracle than you can ever imagine if you would be willing to use it for me. Only Jesus knew how good the lunch really could be. And when Jesus got a hold of it, he turned the little tiny Lunchable into a miracle to feed 5,000. But I want you to notice at the very end, look at the very end of verse 12. Verse 12. After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. Gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. And what I want you to grasp this idea is that nothing is wasted when it's used for Jesus. Nothing is wasted when it's used for Jesus. 12 baskets full. Jesus could have gone, that's, glad you guys got to see that miracle. You can just kind of throw those away and we'll do something else later. Jesus did not waste a single thing. Nothing is wasted when it's used for Jesus. Now, don't miss this. There are 12 baskets full of bread. Some of that bread was not used during this miracle. Like it wasn't used to feed the 10 to 15,000 people. It was used at a later date. What for, we don't know. But it was still used. And whenever you give your tuna fish sandwich to Jesus and whatever it is, your talent, your ability, your skill, your gifting, it may not be used right then and there the way you think it should, but it doesn't ever go to waste. And see, all too often we want things to be done now. Well, I showed up and I served. Let me see something happen. Well, I met in this small group. I want to see something happen. I did this. Okay, I'm ready to see the miracle happen now. You may not see it today, tomorrow, months, years. You may not even see it this side of heaven. But it doesn't mean it goes to waste. Because nothing, when it's given to Jesus, used for Jesus, is ever wasted. So you might be sitting in a kid's small group or a student small group, leading them, thinking you're not making any progress, and years down the road, you get a text from one of your students going, hey, you said something in this small group one night, and you don't even remember, and you're going, oh, okay, and they go, that changed the course of my life. That kept me on the right track. You might run into people months, years from now going, hey, listen, you don't remember this, but I was coming to Mountain Lake one day and having an awful day. You just happened to be standing at the door, and you just smiled. And I just need to tell you that smile forever changed my life that day and got me back on the right track. You have no idea what your little tuna fish sandwich, what you think, man, is good for nothing, can do for Jesus until you give it over to him. And even though you may not see it today or tomorrow, it doesn't mean it goes to waste. 12 baskets left over, could have been thrown away. Well, gosh, that was nice. They weren't using that miracle, but Jesus goes, no, we're not wasting any of this. We're not wasting the boy's lunch. We're not wasting his obedience. We're not wasting his faith, his willingness to go, you know what? It's yours, Jesus. So no, we may not use it in this miracle, but it's not going to waste. We may not see it today, but it doesn't mean it gets thrown away. What you do, how you serve, when you show up, you may not see it right then and there, but it doesn't mean it goes to waste. You have no idea the impact that you're making this side of heaven until you get to the other side of heaven. You can imagine when you pass from this life to the next, you're standing before Jesus. He says, well done, good and faithful servant. He says, you serve me in this way or you help me in this way. And you're going to say, Lord, when did I ever do those things for you? And he goes, we did it to the least of these, my brothers and sisters. When you showed up and served snotty-nosed kids, you were doing it unto me. When you sat in a small group with a student who wasn't paying any attention, he goes, you were doing it unto me. When you served the communities of Forsyth and Dawson County, you were doing it unto me. When you held open a door at Mountain Lake, you were doing it unto me. When you waved to people in the parking lot, you were doing it unto me. When you went overseas, when you built a house, when you counted money, when you ran a camera, when you ran sound and lights, when you sang on stage, you weren't doing it for yourself. You weren't doing it. He goes, you were doing it unto me. Because nothing you ever did for me was wasted. No, you may not have seen the results of it right then and there, but I did. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of your master. And all those things you thought you were doing for somebody else, he goes, you were doing it for me. Nothing you ever do in the name of Jesus ever goes to waste. I was reminded of something that happened in my life nearly 25 years ago that had a profound impact on my life that I'm now about to share with you. And I emailed the guy that led the charge of this and just goes, hey, I emailed him this week. I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I remember that this happened and had a huge impact. I want to thank you. I'm going to share this story. And he emailed me back. He goes, Chris, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, so I don't remember this happening, but I'm so glad you benefited from it. And I said, yeah, because it was a small little tiny deal to him, but it had a huge impact on me. I was 11 or 12 years old, and I would always show up early Sunday mornings with my dad, who was the pastor. He would show up early. He would pray with some of the leadership, and I would always go and help make coffee. I'm an old soul by nature, and so I just get along really well with people older than me. So a little 11, 12-year-old boy, I'd go over here, and there was the coffee crew. And just here, we make coffee and this and serve and give away free coffee. And I just loved it. Did it for a long, long time. That summer when I was 11 or 12 years old, my family and I go on vacation for a week. We come back, and our house had been robbed, had been broken into. Door had been kicked down. They had stolen a bunch of valuables, some of my mom's jewelry, and they had stolen my lawn mowing cash that I had made that summer. I had about $400 or $500 cash sitting on my dresser that they had taken. My parents didn't have a whole lot of money back then, and so they're just going, I'm so sorry, Chris. And man, I was broken heart. I mean, it was a life savings for 11 or 12-year-old kid, $400 or $500, hard work, mowing yards, frustrated. Then a couple of weeks later, my dad comes home one Sunday afternoon with an envelope that was sealed. It just said Chris on it. He goes, hey, somebody told me to give this to you. And it said Chris on it, and I opened it up, and I'll never forget, it came on a blue piece of paper typed. And I opened it up, and all it said was, Chris, we heard what happened. Hope this might help. Sincerely, the coffee crew. And I opened it up, and there was $400 to $500 cash there in that envelope. And, it was just one of those deals as a 12-year-old kid, you think your whole life savings is gone. And some of these adults threw $20 into an envelope, probably that they don't remember today. But that $20, 25 years later, still has an impact on me and now impacts you. If you have no idea what one conversation, one given $20 to this or that can do when you do it in the name of Jesus. When you go, you know what? It's not much. It's a tuna sandwich. Yeah, I know I'm creative. I know I'm a good negotiator. I've got business acumen. I'm in leadership. I can sing. I can write. I can speak. It's not much. I mean, it's just kind of what I do. And Jesus goes, that's all I need. That's all I need. Some of you've got an experience that you've made it through. You've weathered a storm of life, and you've got scars. Don't let those scars go to waste just for you. Let those scars be stories now to help somebody else and go, you know what? It's not much. It hurt. But Jesus, this story is yours. This scar is yours. I've walked through this, and so whatever good it will do, Jesus, I'm all in. Nothing you ever do in the name of Jesus ever goes to waste. Imagine the little boy said, you know what? Man, there's a lot of people here. I'm sure glad my mom packed me a lunch and goes and eats it by himself. He would have missed it. He would have missed the miracle. But by faith and by obedience, he goes, what good is it? Jesus, it's yours. Jesus goes, I know exactly how good it is. Feeds everybody, doesn't just turn it into rations, but into an all-you-can-eat buffet and says, don't let anything go to waste. And so where does the rubber meet the road with this message? Where does it overlay into your life? Two very simple questions. Question is this, is what do you have and how will you use it? What do you have and how will you use it? What do you have in your life? Maybe you're a soccer mom, you're a soccer dad, you're an attorney, you've got military background, you've got law enforcement background, you're a scientist, you're a CPA, you've walked through a divorce and come out the other side. Maybe you grew up with divorced parents. Maybe you're captain of a football team. Maybe you're creative. Maybe you're really sharp at building great companies. Maybe you've got just an unbelievable network of people. You've got influence. There's something in your life that you go, well, it's not much. No, it's not much for you and in your life. But in the hands of Jesus, it can be multiplied to a greater amount of people than you can ever imagine. And so what do you have? Well, it doesn't seem like much. No, it's not. But in the hands of Jesus, what do you have and how will you use it? How will you use it? Here's the thing. You are free to keep your skill, talent, and ability for yourself. Certainly can. Nobody's going to come pry it from you. I'm not going to guilt you into it. You can keep it for yourself. No problem at all. And the little boy could have had his lunch. No big deal at all. But man, he would have missed out on this fantastic miracle and this story for the rest of his life. Going, man, I showed up. I was kind of hungry, but, they were looking for some food. And, man, I saw the craziest thing ever. How will you use it? Will you use it for Jesus or will you use it for yourself? Will you benefit the kingdom of God or will you benefit yourself? And the choice is purely up to you. What do you have and how will you use it? If you're going, Chris, I don't have much, but what I have, I'm willing to use for Jesus. Just a quick question, Chris. How do I go about doing that? How do I go about doing that? We've made it very, very simple for you here today. If you're going, you know what? I don't have much, but I'm willing to use it for Jesus, Chris, in whatever shape or form that is, then all you would have to simply do is that little communication card. You just look at some options over there. If one of them interests you, circle it, walk out into the lobby. There's some really friendly people there and go, hey, this is interesting. Hey, I'd like to do this. Hey, can I run cameras and make fun of Chris while he's preaching? Is that possible? Like, is that job open? Like, can I pour into kids? We got our whole kids and student team out there going, hey, can I pour into the next generation? I don't have much, but I have a listening ear. I don't have much, but I have an empty living room and a DVD player. I can open it up. I don't have much, but I can make a mean cup of coffee. I don't have much, but I have a smile and I can open up a door. I don't have much, but man, I'm willing. If you're willing to do that and go, you know what, I don't have much, but I'm willing to give it over to Jesus, then you just walk out of the lobby and go, hey, what's his name on stage? Said to come out here. What do I do? I'm all in. And they're going to smile and go, great. What do you have? Well, here's what I have. And they're going to say, here's how you can use it for Jesus. And so that's what I would ask that you would do today. That you wouldn't rush out to your car. I'm going to let you out a few minutes early so you can walk out there, meet with some really nice people. Our whole Next Gen team is out there. Man, I can just say personally, Brianna, we did this years ago. We served with some students. And you can ask her. She still has girls from her small group texting her, reaching out to her. And she would tell, she goes, man, that was just one of the most fun, fruitful times of serving together and seeing these students. And you're sitting there going, am I making a difference? Yes, you are. Why not seeing it? You probably won't. Well, why didn't it happen sooner? Because you know what? Sometimes your miracle may be in the 12 baskets of leftovers. You may not see it this side of heaven, but you will, and it doesn't go to waste. What do you have and how will you use it? And it's easy to go, well, it's not that much. Not in the hands of in your hands, but the hands of Jesus. He takes the Lunchable and turns it into a miracle. And he does it in unbelievable ways. And so if we finish up our time at coffee today, the check came, we're finishing it up, I'd go, listen. I would tell you, listen, you are the most unbelievable person I have had coffee with today. That dude gets it up there. All right, the rest of you will catch it afterwards. Listen, you're creative, you've got leadership, you've got time, my hope is that you see that you can use what little thing that you have in an unbelievable way in the hands of Jesus. And so whatever it is that you do, don't keep it for yourself. Don't keep the lunch for yourself and go, man, I'm gonna give it to Jesus and let him multiply it in ways that you can never, ever imagine. But it only happens when you go, Jesus, it's not mine, it's yours. Let me pray for us. Jesus, I thank you for this story and this miracle, the sense of humor, Lord, to take a little boy's sandwich and turn it into an all-you-can-eat buffet for thousands of people. And it's proof, Lord, that you can take what little things that we have and multiply it in bigger and greater ways than we could ever imagine. So, Lord, my prayer for all of us here in this room and watching on the live stream that we just go, Lord, what do we have and how can we use it for you? And we'd see ourselves serving in the name of Jesus, not begrudgingly, but with a smile on our face, having the time of our life because we see you change lives. We see you impact more people than we could ever imagine on our own. So, Lord, my prayer is that you would inspire each and every person here in this room to see themselves that way. The little thing that they have to be used in a massive way for you. Jesus, I love you. I thank you for who you are. Thank you for dying on the cross. Thank you for the empty tomb. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.